All right, guys, I'd like to thank you for coming out to this presentation on Class A foams and why we should maybe start thinking about using them versus just using water on fires, any fire really that we run on. So I'll start with just an introduction. Most of you guys already know me. My name is Chris Sheeler, I work for Green Valley Fire District. I've been here for going on 5 years now, firefighter, paramedic. With that being said, if you guys can just introduce yourselves a little bit, we'll start over here.
My name is Jared Lopez. I've been with the district for 9 years, and I'm a captain at Station 152 Asia.
Thanks, Cap. Welcome.
Engineer Greg Gatter, been with the fire district many years, and engineer on A shift. Welcome.
My name is probationary firefighter Mike Downs. Been with the district 6 months, and I'm a firefighter on A shift.
Greg Hernandez, fire inspector, 25 years.
Welcome. Well, a lot of experience out here in various ways, shapes, or form. So the first thing I just want to start with on this presentation is a study from the National Institute of Safety and Technology. They released specifically with some, excuse me, not tests, but some crib fires that they ran. They ran several different scenarios with the same fuel load in every single crib. And per them specifically, they said in all cases, the agent, in this case Class A foam, outperformed plain water by suppressing the flames within 60 seconds. And that was consistent. They ran it several different times and it consistently outperformed water on multiple occasions. So that being said, if we think back to prior fires that we've had, how many times have we actually flown foam on those fires? I know personally for the experiences I've had, I've yet to actually see us use Class A foam on a residential structure fire. The only time I've seen it is on car fires. And so I think a little bit of this kind of changing that mentality and where we're at when we get into those situations and kind of understanding the benefits of using foam when we go into those situations. Have anybody out here, have you ever afterwards on a fire kind of thought back like, why didn't we try using foam on it or anything like that? I'm sure we're all kind of in the same boat there. So one thing that's been brought to my attention, and this is just from experiences I've had, is it's considered a cost issue. A lot of times when I've asked that question, why aren't we using foam on these fires when we know it can outperform water? The one thing I get back is it comes down to the cost issue. And then my rebuttal to that, though, is how often are we actually running structure fires, or any fires for that matter? I know we're all firefighters, but a majority of the calls we run now are emergency services and things like that. So is it really that much of a cost savings by not using the foam on those few and far between fires that we actually have? So with that being said, I have a small demonstration just to kind of show you the differences, and we'll come back to it later. In this syringe, I mixed up a little bit of foam, what would be considered less than a 0.5% foam concentration. There's really not a lot of foam inside of this, and this is just plain water. Here, just a plain piece of cardboard, nothing fancy to it. I labeled it for each side that we're going to test it on. And we'll go ahead and put a little bit of foam on this side, water on that side. We'll let it kind of sit there as I finish up the rest of this presentation, and we'll compare the differences and see what we think. So I'll put the same amount on both of them. So I'll put about 15 drops. Okay, so that's foam. So immediately, just by putting them on there, you can see it just sitting there. So one thing that foam does is we're reducing the surface tension, correct? This table's slightly tilted, so it's going to want to run off the edge of it. Perfect. So you can see this is going to spread out, and it's going to start absorbing throughout the cardboard. For our video guests here, I'll bring it up to the screen so you guys can see it there. And water, that surface tension isn't broken, so you can see it's just pooled and sitting on top of it. Now cardboard we would probably consider as being fairly absorbent, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, when you think about it, they usually soak up water just fine. So in just this cardboard demonstration, you can kind of see the benefits of that soaking into what would be considered an absorbent material versus wood or something else to that effect. Again, we'll come back to this and we'll compare those again. We'll let them soak there for a while so you can kind of really see that long-term effect it's going to have. Now one thing when we go into every fire, what's our objective? We have 3 objectives we're supposed to hit, right? Has anybody heard the term lip service? This is kind of new to me. I just learned this, and it's actually a really easy way to remember it. So lip service, you guys know what it is. It's life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation, correct? So we'll touch on each of those a little bit, how foam could probably help us in every single scenario. So through NFPA, or the National Fire Protection Agency, extinguishment is the greatest contributor to life safety. When we roll up to a fire, the best thing we can do to help the outcome of the patients or anyone that may be inside the house fire is extinguishment of fire. You put out the fire, you reduce the IDLH environment, temperatures drop, and things like that. Foam is a perfect example of how we may be able to speed up that process. We're applying foam to the fire, it's helping knock it down, we're smothering it, we're cooling the fire, we're doing several different things at one time that water just doesn't have that same capability. That moves us into incident stabilization. Must be reached, correct? That's one of our goals that we have to hit. Every single scene that we run, we have our incident command system, and we start getting the different units on scene and start to hit those benchmarks that we need to hit. Once incident stabilization is hit, that's when we start moving into the property conservation, where we start worrying about actual conservation of the house itself, materials inside of it, belongings of the homeowner. And I think for us, property conservation is really where the rubber meets the road, I guess you can say. It's where the community sees what we do. So they don't know all the details about everything else inside the fire. What they see is, did we burn the house down, or did we prevent it from burning down? So again, a perfect example of where foam could possibly help make our jobs a little bit easier, getting an earlier stop on those fires, and going from there. And the other thing with property conservation is we're only as good as our last fire. The last fire is the thing that everybody remembers. So if we got an early stop on it, that's going to be the one that people remember. Have you guys ever heard the term with foam makes water wetter? Which is exactly what we're doing. So according to the International Firefighters magazine, on average, the use of Class A foam increases water's wetting capacity tenfold, which is significant. If you're increasing it tenfold, you're doing basically 10 times the amount of work with the same amount of material you're using. So the simple question there is, why aren't we using it? The studies are out there, it's been proving that it works better, and other than the possible cost side of it, if our job is to get there, life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation, why aren't we using this tool to help us better do our job? So in conclusion, we know foam reduces the surface tension of water, allowing it to better penetrate Class A fuels, which this little demonstration will help us see here. We need to remember what our objectives are on every fire, which again would be lip service or life safety, incident stabilization, property conservation. The use of firefighting foam by the fire services, it's not a single extinguishment method, it's just another tool that we have in our toolbox. So if we use that properly with the different tactics we have, we can much better increase our effectiveness on those fires. And then lastly, we'll just run back into this demonstration here, and I'll kind of move this around so you guys can see it. You can see on the foam side, other than the fact that it kind of ran down a little bit, but it's completely absorbed into the cardboard here, whereas the water is still pooled on top of the cardboard. So after all this time and sitting through this presentation, the water hasn't moved anywhere. And so if you think about actually applying water to a fire or whatever the burning surface is, if that's all you're doing, you're not actually penetrating into the hot embers and stuff like that, are we really being efficient with our use of water? And with that, are there any other questions? All right, I'd like to thank you guys for your time. Again, my name is Chris Sheeler, Green Valley Fire District, and I hope you guys have a great day. And you guys in the video, all right, I'll bring this over here and hopefully you can see it as well. So it's going to run off of here, so bear with me. So on the water side, you could probably see it just drop down. We don't have a lot of absorption in here. It just kind of remained on top of the surface. And on the foam side, it's completely absorbed into the cardboard and soaked through.